everybody. Welcome to Talking the Way Home. This is a show where we like to dive into all of the drama of The Way Home season 3. And today we're talking about episodes 4 and 5, and they were pretty crazy, a lot of fun. And I'm film critic Rachel Wagner, and Crystal Monano's here.
Hello, thank you for having me. I'm so
Yeah.
excited we're going through this whole season together.
Yes, I am too. I felt like season 2 was more uneven, but I'm feeling pretty good about season 3, where
I
we're
feel like
going.
every episode there's something. I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
now what's going on? There's so much to explore.
Yeah, I think the reason why is because Elliot and Dell were frustrating in season 2 because they weren't characters that had any agency in the story.
Now they're
They
in
Now they're in there. Now they can
there.
actually like matter instead of
hmm
just being kind of complainers. So, well, let's dive in. Let's talk about it. So we have episode 4. I'll have to say I love you in a song. And this romance is top of mind as Alice, Kat, and Dell reflect on love in their past, present, and future. Meanwhile, Jacob struggles with his memories.
mm,
So
Jacob, man.
overall, what did you think about this episode?
It was fun. It was fun.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, fun is it was sad for Jacob. I mean, we get to see a lot of like the struggles that he's feeling, looking back at everything that had happened to him with the Goodwins.
Yeah.
But a lot of backstory, which, I love getting to dive deeper into what's going on with everybody.
There were a couple things that confused me, and we'll talk about it. But
Okay.
yeah, there was also some fun moments. I think the biggest reveal in this episode is that Max doesn't know who Casey is. Like, what is that?
See, we have to talk about that when we get to
Yeah,
it. I
yeah,
feel like there's so much to explore there.
yeah.
Like,
Like that's
what does it
crazy.
mean?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, that was what I was, because I've been suspicious about Casey that they could be a time traveler or something, but we'll get into whatever.
Yeah. So it starts out with Colton and Jacob camping it out in the 90s.
Mhm.
And he says, "Are you sure we're safe, Dad? Nothing can hurt you, I promise."
Hmm.
So that's kind of setting the tone for the episode of
That
going on.
he hasn't been keeping them safe because he hasn't been saying the truth.
Hmm.
Mm.
So
Mm.
yeah, I mean, obviously we know that Colton is aware of time travel, has time traveled. We've seen him as a young man get out of the pond. We know that, but we don't know at what point he found out about it. That's what we're still figuring out.
Yeah, I've been thinking about this too because, they say the pond takes you where you need to go. So there could be times where like maybe they've gone in the pond and not gone anywhere because they didn't need to go anywhere yet. So I'm
Yeah.
like, maybe there's been times where he didn't believe in the pond because he went in there. I think we were like, people have been potentially speculating like, was he trying to go into the pond to save his friend Rick? But like maybe he couldn't, maybe it wouldn't let him go, and maybe he was
Uh-huh.
like, not believing in it.
Well, and I think it's in the next episode when Alice says that says they talk about, well, Colton went into the pond to save Evie and didn't and that they talk about the magic that Colton knew about, the magic of the pond, but then nothing happened when
Mm.
she's talking to Fern. I think that's in the next episode.
All right, so we'll get to
Yeah,
it. We'll,
anyway.
we'll analyze.
So
Yeah.
yeah, clearly there was times when it didn't work for Colton,
hmm
you know. So I watched these together, so they do admittedly kind of blur together a little bit. So people have to forgive me. But yeah, and I was kind of shocked that they had basically a bedroom scene between Kat and Elliot. Like I've never seen that on Hallmark Channel before.
They're getting hot and heavy.
Yeah, that was very surprising to me. I don't know. Like, I wish I was 100% feeling the chemistry between Kat and Elliot. Like, they're okay. I don't hate it, but like, I'm not super invested in their relationship. And maybe that's just because I like Thomas so much. I don't know.
Yeah.
Are
Well,
you
I feel like
feeling it more than me?
I don't know. Like I was, but then I feel like as we get into that fifth episode, I feel like there's a lot of like unsureness from Cat too still. So maybe I don't know. Well, I think
Maybe
when we
that's
get to episode
affecting
five,
chemistry.
we can keep getting back into that because I
I don't
feel like
know.
I don't know. Like I thought that they were pretty solid, but then she let Thomas kiss her in episode one to say
Uh,
goodbye, and
yeah.
it just seems like she's not, like she's maybe trying to force things with Elliot when maybe she really is still thinking about Thomas. When we get into
Yeah, and I don't know,
five.
I'm just not like I'm not feeling that spark the way like I feel they do feel more almost like a brother sister family dynamic than a maybe that's part of it. It almost feels more like family than it does romance between the two
Yeah,
of them. I don't know. It's just not
I don't think.
not 100% working for me.
Yeah, I wasn't sure, but as we get into the this fifth episode too, I'm like, I don't know, maybe she really does like Thomas more.
Yeah, yeah. And I would be so curious if that was I mean, I'm curious in general for the show, like what is planned and what is not planned. Like we talked to the writers and they do have a plan, but then they also seem to imply that it's evolving and changing, which would make sense.
Mm.
And so I would be very curious to know like what their sort of initial plans were with Thomas, if he was just going to be kind of a guest and then they ended up liking him and oh we got to write him into more
I feel
or
like
if it
because of
was
the time periods, like you could really do whatever you want. Like you could always go back at any
yeah
time because, you know, the it takes you where you need to go. So like it could be like 10 years down the line and they could go back and it'll only be a few years in
yeah
the 1800s and still bring those same characters back.
I it'd be very interesting. I mean because obviously they were planning on they knew that he was very attractive. They have him the very first time we saw him was coming out of the pond, you know.
Like we know
And
the audience, we know
yeah,
what they
I mean
like.
there was no confusion about that, but nevertheless, I would just be curious to know like
Hmm.
what was kind of added and what was originally planned, but
Hmm.
who knows? But I was surprised that they had a bedroom scene in a Hallmark
Hmm.
show. That was extremely surprising. And so then Alice tells Kat like we need to go in the pond. We need to fix this. We need to she's feeling antsy.
Hmm.
Yeah. And then Noah but then Noah calls and so the things in these two episodes things escalate between Noah and Alice.
What do you think about them?
Yeah, I mean he's pretty bland. It's fine. He's fine. But the I feel like the dynamic between this whole Max dynamic is sort of even more interesting.
Hmm.
And that's gonna be so the sort of this and I don't think it's like a love triangle, but just like this dynamic between the three of them, I think is almost more interesting than the Noah of it all.
They're hinting something, I feel like.
Yeah,
What
yeah.
they're hinting.
What do you think? Are you
I mean, I liked Noah. I feel like
yeah.
everyone thinks he's bland, but I liked the two of them together. Um, and then and then I don't know, as we get into the next episode, it's like, wait, are they trying to tell us that like Alice and Max I don't know.
Yeah, that's what I was feeling too. I'm like something is going on between like Max, what's going on with Max? Like it was an
Yeah.
interesting kind of dynamic that
Mm-hmm.
we're doing. And so then we have then we have Dell
Mm-hmm.
getting a note saying, I know about your family and soon they all will.
Oh,
And she
yeah.
has this conversation with Colton saying, tell her, she has this conversation with Colton saying, tell Kat and Jake. And then she says, what if I can't protect our kids, Colt? I was a little bit confused. Like, is this just a completely imaginary conversation, or is this like a flashback to a conversation that she had?
Oh, I thought it was an imaginary conversation that she like because I feel like they were doing that in season two also where like she needs someone to talk to so she kind of just like talks to this ghost of Colton that's not really
Yeah,
but maybe is like sort of her subconscious.
I
That's what
thought
I
so, but they've done some both, but I was pretty sure that it was an imaginary, but there was something about it that was like, because she didn't know about it, so why would Colton have said that? But so yeah, it makes more sense that it was imaginary, but I thought it was just staged. It was a little confusing.
Yeah,
But
I thought it
anyway,
was in her head and her just being like, what would Colton do? And he would be like, you got to tell them, like,
yeah. I
uh,
mean, yeah, obviously she should tell them.
yeah. But they all have a track record for not telling nobody nothing. He
Yeah,
didn't tell anybody about the
that's
ponds.
true.
He's gonna
Yeah.
wait till it's too late to tell them about these letters, and then it's gonna be like, what
Well,
were
and
you
I guess I
for?
see Dell's perspective because it's like, what could they really even do,
What they could
about it?
call the police, or they could look into it themselves, or they could start theorizing, who is it? Who is it? Who do you think it is?
Um, it's a good question. I mean, I'm a little bit suspect. I feel like it could end up, I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being either Vic or like someone from left field, like Sam or somebody like that. We're
Yeah, I was
not,
thinking
I could see that
Sam.
being like a reveal, like, oh,
Yeah, or maybe even like Casey. Like
yeah,
someone that like isn't super there right now.
yeah.
Maybe something
I
like
could
that.
even see, do we know, is Evie, is she passed away?
She died, yeah,
She
she
died.
died
She died.
recently
Okay. I could see it being, a good win
in some way.
in
Yeah.
some way. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah, because they're
and
bringing good ones in this season. It was like the first season was the Landrys, the second season brought in the Augustines more, with with Susanna, and so this third season I feel like is bringing in more of the good wins. So maybe just to show that maybe they all really have like some
yeah.
kind of ties to everything that's going on in this pond, and because like when you think about it, why are they able to time travel through the pond when like there's three families that have been here from the beginning? Maybe there's something there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, do you
Mm,
have a top category? Do you think it might be, you think Casey? Uh,
maybe my get gut was
Top
maybe
suspect?
Sam or Casey were.
Yeah, I think so. That just feels very Hallmarky to me. The Sam feels very Hallmarky to me. Like if you
Hmm.
watch the Cozy Mysteries on Hallmark Channel,
Hmm.
it's usually the murderer is like somebody that's like been in a bunch of scenes, but like is supposed to be
Like a
like a
little bit,
reveal, like,
yeah,
oh,
like a little bit
surprise.
removed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So then she does go into the past, and we see Evie, and she is reciting the Lady of Shalott, which this
Hmm.
had very Anna Green Gables vibes to me,
Hmm.
because that's what Anne does. She cites the Lady of Shalott, and that's when Gilbert rescues her from the sinking ship, that she's on, the boat that she's on, and because they stage this funeral dirge with the Lady of Shalott, and anyway,
What is the Lady of Shalott? Like, does it have anything to do with like a pond or water? And like, could that be like a hint of anything?
well, I just know in Anna Green Gables, so it's written by Tennyson, um, Alfred Lloyd Tennyson in 1832, and there's this whole,
1800s.
yeah, that yeah, it's all um like I said, I just know more from Anna Green Gables, that the there's the whole scene with a funeral. You know how they, for funerals, they used to put people on a boat and send them.
Hmm.
Yeah, there's a whole scene of that, and that's what her and her friends try to recreate. But then the ship, the boat, whatever, springs a leak, and then Gilbert saves her, and she's still like very upset. Like she's like, I don't need you to rescue me, and whatever.
Hmm.
It's really good. Have you ever seen the Angry Gables
I
with?
have
Oh,
not.
it's so
No.
good. It the 1980s Anne Green Gables from, I think
Mhm.
it's 1985. It might be my it might be my favorite like media like ever. It's up
Oh,
there, top
wow.
five for sure.
Okay, I'll have to
I
check it
I
out.
really do love it, and I mean I love the book. and the books, and the the sequel, Anne of Avonlea, is still fun, not as good. The
Hmm.
third one is garbage. Don't watch it. So there you go.
So, okay, so I looked it up.
Anyway,
And it's saying, it represents like a woman trapped, forced to view the world only through a mirror, like through the constraints that's like placed upon women in Victorian society. So I feel like maybe with Evie saying that it's like representing how she feels maybe about being a good win.
yeah, and
Maybe
I'm
she,
looking at it. It looks like it says on either side the river lie, long fields of barley and rye, and then willows whiten, aspens shiver, and it goes in the stream that runneth over by the island in the river, flowing down to Camelot, four gray walls, four gray towers. So it looks like it has something to do with Camelot, and there's a lot of talking about rivers and
River.
streams. And beneath the moon, the reaper weary, listening whispers, "'Tis the fairy, the lady of Shalott. Little isle is all enrailed with a rose fence and overtrailed, with roses by the marge unhailed. The shallop flitteth silken sailed." Anyway, a lot of river talk. So
Maybe something hinting at how like the pond has the ability to like help you break free of your limitations or something.
maybe, yeah, it's in a Camelot. They crossed themselves, their stars they blessed, knight, minstrel, abbot, squire, and guest. There lay a parchment on her breast that puzzled more than all the rest. The well-fed wits at Camelot, the web was woven curiously. The charm is broken utterly. Draw near and fear not. This is I, the Lady of Shalott. So there you go.
There we go. There we
So
go.
yeah, I think it's, I mean, it's a very romantic, in the sense of like classic romanticism, poem, but also it has a lot to do with water. So I guess that's probably why they picked it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I am no expert. If we have any poet experts on Tennyson, please chime in.
Ho, ho, ho. We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast, especially at Christmas?
Do you enjoy the holiday previews, recaps, interviews, and bonus episodes?
If the answer is yes, please consider supporting the Hallmarkies Patreon. We need your help to do what we do both during the Christmas season and all year round.
But not only do you help a podcast led by strong, independent women by becoming a Patreon, you get to become a part of the Hallmarkies family.
Starting at only $2 a month as a patron, you will have access to our Facebook Patreon group where we talk about the movies, shows, and more all year.
We also have many monthly patron watch-alongs with guests like Lacey Chabert, Natalie Hall, Paul Campbell, Mary Lou Henner, and more, giving their behind-the-scenes details of their films.
As a patron, you also have the chance to provide input into the podcast and even join us at different tiers.
So this Christmas season, spread some cheer to the Hallmarkies Patreon and become a member today. You won't regret it.
Go to patreon.com/hallmarkies to learn more.
That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
So Evie says the pond is a very special place.
Mm-hmm.
So it will be interesting to know, like, how much does Evie figure out?
Yeah, I feel like there's something that she knows, or I don't
Well,
know.
because she has that painting of Kat in her house, and
In
you
episode,
figure
yeah,
like
in
she
5.
must have seen that and been like, this looks exactly like this woman in.
Yeah, that's now visiting in the 70s.
Yeah,
Maybe she'll
well,
figure
visiting the 70s,
that.
but then also just like later on being like, this is the same person. Like you'd think that somebody would have put all the pieces together,
Yeah. Well,
especially her when she
it's happening
literally has a
now.
painting of her in her
Yeah,
house.
it's all happening now. They're piecing
It's
it
going to
together
be
as we watch.
interesting to see. So
Hmm.
you have Dell listening to ABBA. Colton's kind of flirting with her, and we do get a lot. It's kind of hard to talk about because we get a lot of flipping back between the different
There was a
timelines
lot,
in this
yeah.
episode.
Hmm.
Because you got Jacob he gets this job offer from Lewis, Goodwin. And so you've got that going on. You've got stuff going on in 1999. You've got stuff going on in the 70s. It's kind of a busy episode.
Hmm.
Yeah. And so you also have Jacob as he's thinking about this job, he keeps having these visions of Cyrus.
Hmm.
And he says, I can't work with that family.
Yeah. They like tortured him. Like
Yeah.
this man has a serious trauma and PTSD related to the Goodwin family.
Mhm.
And it's not like you can be like, well, it happened in that was like 9 months ago or whatever for this guy. Like it just happened for him.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's tough.
So there's this in 1965, there is this what do you call it? Town council meeting or whatever
Yes.
about the pond and people want to fill in the pond.
Hmm.
And so Kat listens to the recording in the 70s of the meeting, the council meeting.
Hmm.
And it was a little bit hard to understand exactly what they were all saying in there, but Evelyn Evie's on there says pond is magic. What was the big takeaway from that listening to that recording?
This is what I thought it was saying. I thought that something happened where Evie and Colton were at the pond and maybe Evie fell in and Colton had to save her from drowning. Did they time travel somehow then? I don't know. And maybe Evie just thinks it was like a dream, but like feels like there's something magical about the place. I just feel like whatever happened, whether they time traveled or not, like I think she fell in, was drowning, or maybe thought she was drowning, and then Colton saved her, and then people want to close up this pond because it's dangerous, but then maybe they're like, no, but there's something special about it, don't close it up. That's what
Yeah,
I was
because
thinking.
so she says dad saved Evelyn from drowning when they were kids, but he didn't get sucked under. But do we know that he didn't get sucked
I
under?
mean, there's no proof that they know. Like,
Yeah,
for all
like we
I
could
know, it
find
could be
out that
true.
he actually did, and that's what got this whole mess started.
Yeah. Because, like, why would Evelyn feel like the pond is magic unless, like, there's been, I don't know, did she travel with him somehow?
Yeah,
Like,
did she?
and where did they go? Maybe they were confused and they just went back in, and then I feel
Yeah,
like we're
because
going to see
she
some
said that
cool
it's
theme
magic
around
in
that.
1965. It's not like this is a new thing,
Yeah.
you know? So she
Yeah.
would have been little.
I want to see that scene. I feel like we're
I
going to see it this
know.
season. Like, what
That
really
was,
happened there. Um, and or like will we find out that like other people can time travel
yeah,
like any of these other founding families?
yeah.
Like maybe they can.
Well,
Who
I
knows?
should say also, like, this is just that we that this the part of the fun of the show is like diving into all of these clues and all of these theories and everything. And we've had such great comments from the listeners
Hmm.
and fans of the show on all of our recaps. And people have brought up so many good points. And I hope that people continue to do that because nobody can get all of everything with the show. Like there's so much. And so if you heard something else or you saw something else that maybe we missed, please put in the comment section.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's like what some of the fun of it is. Like
Yeah.
it's like that episode in season 2 when Elliot goes back to like a scene that we'd already seen, but now in a completely different perspective.
Yes.
Like they could do that for so many moments here where it's like, what was that? And then it's like,
Mhm.
actually, switch it up. This had this whole other element to it that we didn't even realize.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So the then Dell and Colton are on the boat and Evie says, I never told him how I felt. And so Alice is feeling bad for Evie, starting to feel more sympathy.
Mhm.
But she's also like kind of happy to be seeing the what she thinks is the first love moment, the first moment when they really fell in love, Dell and
Yeah.
Colton. So that's
That
kind
was,
of fun.
yeah, that was cute.
And then
It kind of actually wasn't there a scene similar to that in the 90s with young Kat and Brady? I think there was a scene similar to that where she got to watch like
oh yeah,
really like beautiful moment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was.
That,
Well, and she saw the proposal too.
yeah, that was cool. I like that there's so many like, and I think they've said this, like the creators of the show, like there's like these echoes of things repeating in history, and so that felt like one to me where it's like you get to see both of these like nice moments with
Yeah.
like the couples coming together.
Yeah. And then we have this whole conversation between Kat and Alice, and Kat being kind of hurt that Alice doesn't need her as much, is
I
more
mean, she
independent.
moved out of the house.
Yeah.
Girl, you
Yeah.
left your house with your daughter still with your grandmother or the grandmother.
Yeah.
So what?
Yeah, it's just across the barn, but it's still it's just across the farm, but still
Still,
mentally I can see that.
yeah.
Kat saying maybe I was too impulsive. And then Dell apologized to Kat for being too judgy. So there's sort of all this going on.
Hmm.
Um, so young Dell, she doesn't like the boat. She doesn't want to go on the boat. And then he sings Waterloo, ABBA, and
Oh yes, because Dell gets seasick. Girl, that's so real. She
yeah,
gets seasick and throws up on him, right?
yeah,
And then, but he still likes her, and that was the moment that they fell in love. It's like, yo, if you could deal with that,
yeah.
you
That was funny.
could.
When it says, the moment Alice saw is not the moment we fell in love, right? And she gets car sick, and gets that it's a small moments, not the grand ones that make a life.
Yeah, too
So
funny. I can deal with this. All right, we'll
nothing
do
like
this
a little
forever.
vomit to break love.
Hmm.
So then we find out that Cyrus whipped and tortured Jacob,
Mm,
and that Kat saved his life,
yeah, yeah.
which is pretty crazy.
I feel like that's like a moment that Dell needed to hear about because like they've really not like they told her what went on, but like not really. And so like I don't think anybody's really been understanding how difficult this has been for Jacob. Like this man dealt with a lot. He time traveled, live in a different time with different people. He was tortured and almost killed. And like this, he says it, I'm broken. I'm broken, mom. Like that's so sad. I love
Yeah.
Spencer McPherson. He's so good in this, and I'm so excited for him in School Spirits too. Like he's got this whole beginning of the year is he's got
Oh, yeah. I didn't know he
I
was
love.
in that.
Yeah, I'm
Oh,
excited for
cool.
him doing it.
So yeah, he says I'm broken. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. And then we find out that teen Colton tried to use the pond after Rick's funeral, and it didn't work.
Is that what they were saying? That like, or was it, or we were just assuming because we saw him in the pond and then Cat and then Alice was like, "What are you doing here?" And he was just like, "I don't know, I'm just in the water."
I thought that he said that uh, that Fern had told him that it was magic, and so he tried it and it didn't work, or something to that effect.
Does who saw this? Alice or we're just seeing this like separately from everyone? Because I thought like they still don't know, like and there's still like questions for them, like did Colton know anything? And this to
Uh-huh.
me seemed like a scene maybe where it's like Fern has been saying the pond is magic, but every time he tries to go into it, it's not doing anything. And so he's like, well, so this doesn't work. This is my grandmother's crazy. And then it's like, well, that's because the pond takes you where you need to go, and it has you
Yeah.
haven't where yet, but you
I
will.
can't remember. I can't remember who said this or who heard it, but he did try it after Rick's funeral,
And
and it
obviously,
didn't work
yeah. So
because
they
it
go.
doesn't, like we were saying earlier, it doesn't always work.
Yeah. So maybe this is why, like, I wonder if, like, at this point in time, Colton or Teen Colton doesn't even really know if it's real. Like maybe when he was young with Evie, they somehow traveled and were confused, and then everyone's like, well, you almost died. Like, so you just like saw a vision or something. Like, you didn't really go anywhere and think they're crazy. Not crazy, but like,
Yeah.
And then now he's like, well, my grandmother keeps saying this, let me try. And it's like, this never works. So clearly you can't time travel. But then eventually, maybe down the line, he figures out some way to do
Yeah,
it.
he must. Obviously, we see him coming we see him, so
as
we
an
know he
adult. Yeah.
does. Yeah,
So I wonder if at this point
as
he
a
doesn't
teen.
really know how it works.
Yeah. So there was a sweet scene between Dell and Jacob where she's showing him the mama mail
Mm.
that
Yeah.
little Jacob used to make for her, and she encourages him to take the job.
Mm.
It's risky, I think.
Hmm.
Like especially when he had that outburst earlier, and so he could is he really strong enough to not to be at the Goodwins to not be triggered and he's going to say something he shouldn't.
Maybe this could be a good way for him to face his trauma and maybe they'll find something. Maybe he'll be there and he'll like discover something.
Ooh, maybe that's part of the reason why he's agreeing to it is that he thinks he might discover it might be a way to figure out what happened.
Yeah. Mm.
Ooh,
Mm.
yeah, interesting. uh, uh, so then we have Kat and Elliot dancing to closing time.
Hmm.
Yeah. And then Kat sees her dad's jacket
Mm.
and she kind of freaks out.
This man knows about time travel. We've known it. Now they finally know it. They've been going back and forth. Does he know? Does he know? Does he not
Yeah.
know? Of course he knew. Maybe not
Yes.
as a teen. Maybe he still figured it out then, but he knows.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I
And so,
still don't understand though how you could possibly die, but then still time travel. Right? Because he died, but then we've seen him as an adult in the modern day timeline briefly at
uh-huh.
the end of last season. So,
Yeah. I mean, there have to be
uh,
multiple versions of him, right? Like if
maybe
if if in the
that
period of time between his death and Jacob's missing, if he time traveled a bunch in that time period, there could be multiple, like basically multiple versions of Colton, right?
that could be something, but then there could be multiple versions of all of them. So, like, could we see Alice like come across herself time traveling?
I mean, technically, they already have, right? I mean,
Alice, I don't think
technically,
technically has.
Kat
Seen
has
her
seen
herself.
herself. Yeah,
But what about Alice? Oh my gosh, what if an older Alice comes and shows up in modern day?
yeah,
Oh my gosh, that'd be crazy. Oh,
that would
this
be crazy.
I don't even know. I don't even know. My brain is exploding.
Yeah.
Hey, this is David from the Piecing It Together podcast, a podcast about movies and the movies that inspire them. For over 4 years, each week, a guest and I take a look at a new movie through the lens of what other movies we think were either an influence or connect in some other way. It's a fun, unique way to discuss films that leads to a great list of other movies to check out that either explore the same themes and ideas or maybe utilize similar filmmaking techniques. Including special episodes in our side series that twist the format, we've done over 200 episodes, so there's bound to be one on a film you've been thinking about and want to dig deeper into. So check us out on all the major podcasting apps and at piecingpod.com.
And so Noah and Alice going on date,
Yeah.
and then Max shows up and he's all like, "Ooh, sly," and she says, "Well, what about Casey, your sister Casey?" And he's like, "I don't know who
Your
that is."
sibling, yeah, right?
Yeah, I don't know
Yeah.
who that is.
And they're like, I don't know that. And I'm like, I knew it.
What?
She's either a liar or she's from the future or she's
Both.
both. Although I've been thinking about this because I'm like, Casey, that actor is not half Indian, right? Because
No,
maybe
they
it's
don't
just
look like.
different.
They don't
They
look
don't,
it, at least.
because maybe then that's not Alice's kid. Because I was like, wouldn't they have to look half Indian or
Yeah,
half, right? So, but also maybe that doesn't even matter. They just pick the actor that's best for the role,
right.
And Alice is half white anyway, so maybe, some of that.
Well, yeah, because then some
um,
people are, white passing. I and
exactly. So,
so, but
mm,
even if like, even if she is like, if she was lying about being a Goodwin, Why would she do that? What would be the motivation?
Maybe the power of like that family's rich and like rich and popular in the town, and being able to like use it for her like, or for their whatever goal they have. I don't know. Why would they lie? I have no idea why they would lie. And then especially like when we get into the next episode, which we're about to get into, like Kat keeps saying, "Oh, Casey has Max's eyes. Like they're definitely related." I'm like, "Okay, so what does that mean?"
Yeah.
So maybe they are a good one just from the future.
Well, see, and this didn't make. I was a little bit confused about this note that Dell gets under the door. Was that Jacob who left the note? Because they show him in the hallway. So I was like, was that his note?
What was it? What was the note?
The note says it's time to let go of what was lost and take hold of what's to come.
Was that a
She,
new mama mail that he gave her?
oh. Well, I felt like it was him, but I felt like it was a little unclear. But he was
Hmm.
in the hallway, so yeah, it would be the only one. So he sends her this
That's not so
note.
sinister. So maybe it was more like my mama mail saying like, "Gotta let go and move forward. You know, we gotta come together as a family."
Huh. Yeah, it was interesting. It's time to let go of what was lost and take hold of what's to come.
Hmm.
And then who was it that said, if you knew, why didn't you tell me? Who was that said that? I think it was Dell, I think.
Oh, maybe about what happened to Jacob.
Uh-huh.
Well,
Why
that's
didn't you
not
tell
anyone
me?
else's business to say what happened to him if he has all
Hmm.
this trauma. Like if he wants to open up about all the stuff he dealt with,
Yeah. Well, and it's a
that helps them get
lot.
closer.
It it's a lot to process too. And how is she gonna she can't do anything about it. So why burden your mom with that? I could see why.
Yeah.
But then he has the vision of Cyrus in the hallway.
Mm.
He's left the note. So is that part of his motivation of telling Dell to let go of the past?
Maybe it's a message for himself too, to
Yeah.
like try to move forward in the present day and take advantage of the opportunities
Yeah.
that he's gonna have.
I think this guy playing Cyrus, he's doing a good job.
He's
He's a good
pretty,
bad guy.
yeah.
Yeah. It's good. All right. Episode 5 is called Reeling in the Years, and a lot going on in this one. And it starts out with Jasper taking video of you see him, Colton's playing, he's taking the video, and you have Kat and Alice there. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see that recording again
Yeah.
with
And
both of
see
them
them on
there.
camera?
Yeah, with both of them
That would be
there. That's
crazy.
wild.
But and also the song that he was singing was a song that Coyle said was written by one of his ancestors, right? And it was a song
Hmm.
about Cat by Thomas. That's
Hmm.
whoa,
Yeah, and then we hear
romantic.
more of that song later on.
Ooh,
Yeah. Yeah, I'd forgotten that Thomas was like a poet, until these last few episodes.
yep.
Yeah,
And
yes.
there's, I mean, can you make them any more dreamy?
Oh my
I
gosh.
feel like Kat heard that song and was like, I'm questioning my life choices. Maybe I need to go back
Yeah.
to the 1800s, man, and be with Tom.
I would. I mean, you weren't as impressed, it doesn't seem like, with Thomas. Are you getting more into that camp?
I don't know if I really like am shipping anyone. I just enjoy the ride, but this episode I was like, oh, maybe Kat really doesn't care that much
Yeah.
about Elliot because she's like, does our love warrant, soaring songs that span decades and,
Yeah.
generations? And I don't
I
know
just
if it
feel like
does.
she loves Elliot more like you love a family member.
Yeah.
It doesn't like have that like passion that you want
But
in a
how can you be with someone from the 1800s? That's gonna like change
yeah,
everything, right? I don't even know how
right.
that would work.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they're watching Outlander because that's the same plot. an outlander.
Uh,
So it works for them. Why
yeah.
not?
Why not? Yeah, and honestly,
uh,
the way the past, I feel like I was rooting a little bit more for Susanna, but I guess that didn't make it into the. I felt like they.
yeah.
I mean, they had
But
chemistry with everyone from the 1800s, honestly.
yeah, I mean that's why I thought the 1800 stuff was way better than the in season two than anything else. It was just more compelling, I thought, the characters. So we have Kat talking to Grandma Fern,
Hmm.
and Grandma Fern says that Colton, he's a rule breaker. What does that mean?
No, he seems pretty, you know.
Because there's not that many rules
Well,
of the pond.
yeah,
It's
what
pretty
is it?
simple. So what did he
Hey,
do?
a rule breaker of the pond. I mean, maybe does it
What
have to do
else
with
would she be talking
something
about? Because she asks her about the
something in their
pond.
life? I don't know. Something in like I don't know, like at school or
Yeah, because she asked Grandma Fern about the pond.
he's a rule breaker.
Yeah.
Is that why he's like, does he have some kind of special ability? Is that why he's able to still be alive
Yeah.
after he's been killed and as an adult? I don't know.
Yeah, he's a rule breaker. Maybe he breaks the rule about being able to go into the future.
How? He's got some kind of ability.
Oh,
I don't know.
I don't know. But so this was pretty controversial in this episode. To
Hmm.
have a Ouija board in a Hallmark show is like, I do think that's asking quite a bit of this fan base. That's just not who Hallmark
Yeah.
viewers are. I think that like we were certainly never allowed to play with a Ouija board growing up, and I don't know. I just think like they need to be a little bit careful. Like
Oh,
it
you
is on
think?
Hallmark Channel. You do have a Hallmark audience. I think this was maybe a little too far. For yeah, I do. For the audience. I think I mean there already were people upset about tarot cards
Yeah, I
and
remember
and
that.
so I don't know. Like I just feel like you have to know your audience a little bit.
Wow. Well, so,
Yeah.
I mean, well, because you're like, you've been in the Hallmark audience. I'm a little bit more newer to it. So for
Yeah.
me, I'm like, oh, it's not a big deal. But I have seen, like, like you said, about people being upset about the tarot cards. And now we're adding in, like, more of this kind of stuff. So I could definitely see, audiences not being so sure about it. I don't think it's a huge deal. I think it's just adding to the fun of the story. I mean, when you think about it, like if there's already time travel, you've just opened up that there's all this, who knows what else exists in this world now. So like why wouldn't a seance work?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't, like makes sense to me, but um yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean,
I see what you're
I
saying though.
yeah, I mean when you're dealing with like evil spirits and possession and stuff like that's a lot. I'm not offended personally. I'm just saying that I think it was just
Surprising
I
for the
just know this
audience.
audience and I think that was a a pretty risky move. But let us know in the comments how you
Yeah.
felt about this and if you think where you stand. But nevertheless, that's what they
Yeah.
did.
I was gonna
And
say I do feel like this show has pushed the boundaries of things that maybe you see on other channels and it's not a big deal, whereas what you see on Hallmark and maybe is like,
yeah,
oh, like even what you're saying for the last episode of like the bedroom scene is like, for any other show, not a big
yeah,
deal, but for Hallmark, it's like, ooh, oh
yeah, it's really
my God.
surprising.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean especially for an unmarried couple.
Wow.
Yeah,
Interesting.
to have
Well, I
a
think that Hallmark
the
has been
only time
pushing
I
the
ever remember there
envelope.
being a bedroom scene on Hallmark was, I mean, it doesn't really count, but on the Garage Sale Mysteries, they were married and you would occasionally see them like chatting, but it wasn't like a passionate scene. Like,
Uh,
yeah,
I
I
do
mean,
think
it's
that
just
Hallmark
it's
is
a very,
trying to
very
push the boundaries.
conservative audience.
Yeah, I
And
think that they've been pushing the boundaries though in like their recent like few years, in terms of
yeah,
like inclusion and representation. And I mean, look, like, Casey is a non-binary character. They have,
Yeah.
the tarot and the seance stuff in here. They have, more intimate scenes. I mean, there was more kissing in the first season than probably we've ever seen in a
Yeah.
Hallmark project.
I mean, Elizabeth and Jack were known to have some pretty good kisses, but in When Calls the Heart. But yeah, I mean, it's
The
just it's a
evolution,
risk,
trying to bring
you
in a
know.
new
And so
audience.
that's what we want to hear from the commenters. Let us know what you think, if it's a risk paid off, or how you feel.
You
Like,
know,
I'm obviously, and I'm grown up, I can handle it, but it's just a question of
yeah.
just thinking about their audience. So
I will say I feel like they've been bringing in new audiences. Like, I think I'm a little bit more of a newer
yeah.
audience member to this, and The Way Home definitely was a show that helped me get into this. And I would have watched this show on any channel if it was
Hmm.
on Netflix, if it was on who like Hallmark, Hulu, whatever.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's just like a
Yeah.
really good show in general,
Yeah.
outside of just it being on Hallmark. So it's
Yeah,
interesting.
I could see that. Well, yeah, let us know what you think. But Evie wants to contact Cassandra on the
Oh,
Ouija
yeah,
board.
she just picked a random family name and was like, I think this is the ghost that probably lives in my house. It's a family name. There's probably some ghost named Cassandra.
But it gets crazy because that's basically, is Cassandra Casey?
Oh yeah, because
Or at least is she named after? Is Casey
later on
named
they
after
say
Cassandra?
Casey's a family name in the
Yeah.
Goodwins, and it's like a nickname for Cassandra, which I've never heard anybody use Casey for Cassandra, but
Yeah.
you
So
know,
if Casey is Cassandra, then how did she get the ring? What's going on?
ugh, may is do Alice and Max end up together? And this is
It
their child.
it
And
could
that's
be.
why Casey's got Alice's ring and the Goodwin's eyes.
Yeah. It could
Oh,
be. It could
huh?
be crazy. So then we have uh, and so then Kat finds the words of Thomas, fare thee well, Kat, fare thee well. And and then um
Is this is right when she's comparing what she has with Elliot to Thomas?
yes,
And it's like, yikes, like people could
fare
write
thee
songs about
well.
this, right? Like, girl, you think you're reaching a little.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So then young Dell meets Alice.
For the first time, yeah.
Yeah.
Which is
So
cool because I feel like Alice has a little bit been like trying to stay away from
yeah.
Dell as a kid
Do
because
you think that do you think if you saw somebody that do you think that you would be like, oh my gosh, that person from my past looks exactly like my granddaughter?
she's met her like two other times before modern day. Like, I think you would remember.
Yeah.
I would remember. Like sometimes there's like random people you meet for like one time and you're like, oh, like I remember this person a couple years later. The fact that like they've met and like hung out for
Yeah.
summers on end, you would have to remember
Like I
her.
guess you would probably just sort of discount it as like just one of those things. Like you
I don't know. I feel like if I met Alice
obviously
as
your first thought wouldn't be, oh, this person's time traveled, but like I think you would think it was pretty weird.
I think if I met an Alice as a teen and Alice as an adult and they were both like half Indian girls, like in Canada. Like I don't know.
Yeah.
I think I would remember that. Maybe as like an adult when you're like, this is my grandchild. You've seen them grow up, so maybe it does. Maybe that part doesn't comprehend. But I feel like you would remember the other two instances. Like I don't know. I feel like I remember a lot of people that I've met in my life,
Yeah.
and if I met two Alices, I
Yeah,
think
I mean, I it seems like it. So is Dell not telling everything? Does she know more than she's saying, or did she just discount it as like, I don't know, like face blindness or face, like did she just, or
mm,
does she know more than she's let on? That's why I thought that whole imaginary conversation was a little bit weird in the last episode between her and Colton, like
yeah,
about him warning him about protecting the kids. I'm
yeah.
like,
I
could she,
did. I did ask in my interviews with Sadie LaFlamme Snow, like, why does she think out of everyone only Jacob remembered her? because I was like yeah, like wouldn't Dell remember too? And she was saying that she feels like when you're a kid, you have like a very set group of people that are like in your life. There's like a set cast of like this is who like appears. And, I'm sure if you left at 8 years old, everything from then, like maybe you really remember those things, and you know, it feels like a whole separate like container of life.
That's
Whereas
true.
as an adult, you meet so many people all the time, like, oh, you probably just like forgot. I was like, I don't
It's
know.
true. Like when people have Alzheimer's,
Mhm.
often the things that they actually remember are like just the most insignificant seemingly details about their childhood, but then
Mhm.
they don't know their kids' names or their husband or wife's name, and but yet they can remember their high school locker number. It's very interesting, but if you think about it, not only is it like a different part of your brain that remembers those long-term memories, but also you've been remembering them the longest.
Mm,
You know what I'm saying?
that's true.
So it's been sort of part of your brain for the longest time.
We'd like to take a second and thank our sponsor for this episode of the podcast. It's the Hallmarkies merch store.
Are you looking for that perfect gift for the postable, hardy, or hallmarky in your life?
What about getting that t-shirt or hoodie that will help you stand out at your next holiday party?
Now is the time to check out the Hallmarkies merch store.
Full of festive designs by artists like Jessica Miller, Carrie from Hallmark Comics, and more.
You can even have more than just shirts, but totes, cell phone cases, notebooks, mugs, and more.
And it isn't just Hallmark. We have designs for Anna Green Gables, Man from Snowy River, The Nanny, and more.
Every purchase at the merch store goes to help support the podcast and allows us to make the great content you know and love.
There are frequent sales, so go to tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies or see the link in the description.
That's tpublic.com/stores/hallmarkies.
Well, the Ouija board, it spells fire.
Hmm.
So there's
And then,
fire,
yeah, fire, too fast,
too
and
fast,
blame.
and what?
Blame.
And blame. And
Too
I've
fast
written,
and blame could be with the car, right? If
well,
it was.
too fast fire, they say, oh, it's about Rick.
Yeah, but what would the fire be?
I don't know.
Hmm, maybe a fire's gonna
Because there
happen.
wasn't a fire with Rick, right?
No, not yet.
Too fast fire. Yeah, so that was intriguing. I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
What did you think of this whole thing with Emma, the ex-wife?
It was kind of random, but
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it gives you more of Elliot's like backstory and, why he and Kat like took so long to get together and, explaining a little bit more of who Elliot was, like the kind of person who doesn't make moves and he finally only did because he thought Kat was so happy and he's like, I need something in my life. Um, so I think it gave like some backstory, but I didn't think we'd ever see her, so I guess that's kind of cool that like there really is opportunity for like anybody to show up here. Anyone that's been mentioned could come into the story. So it
Yeah,
gives you
he's
like, a fuller world, which I think is cool.
Elliot says, I had to believe in signs that were presented to me at the time. And then Kat says, I guess there's always someone but before the one.
Girl, you were married and had a daughter and
Right.
like
Yeah.
dated all these other people
And just kissed
and
Thomas.
just kissed Thomas and are literally contemplating if you even belong with Elliot at this point.
Yeah. But I mean, Emma, they made her pretty likable. I
Yeah,
think she
she's
wasn't like
nice.
catty or rude or, you know,
Yeah, she's cool.
she was. So it'd
That
be
probably made
interesting.
it even worse, because she's
Yeah.
not. It's like, God darn,
Well,
she's a girl.
so then Evie says, I should be the one being rescued. She should be the one being in this relationship, not Dell. And they
Um,
find this hidden door with the painting of Cat.
and then that was crazy. I was not expecting that. And Alice is just like, oh my God, wow, I have to go now. My mom needs and she's like, Mom, when Evelyn took out this painting of you, and didn't Evelyn say like this? She looks familiar. Like I think I've seen her around. And then Alice is like, She just looks like a random face, like anybody, like, yeah, just a generic face.
Yeah. So Sam brings over the certificate of resurrection that so he had been Jacob had been declared dead. There's an actual certificate of him not being dead, which I thought was interesting that it was Sam that brought that over.
Oh, wait, say that part again.
I thought it was interesting that it was Sam that brought that over.
And what was it again?
It was this he called it a certificate of resurrection.
And who's not dead?
Jacob. He had been declared legally dead.
Oh,
And so Sam brings over this certificate saying you've now been declared legally alive.
why would he bring that over?
I don't know,
Suspicious.
but he did. I don't know why.
Wait,
That's
is he
what
a
I thought was
lawyer?
interesting.
Was he a lawyer or did I make that up?
Remember.
Hmm.
I can't remember. Or did he work for the newspaper?
I don't
I
think he
can't
worked for the-
remember what Sam's job is.
I feel like he's a lawyer.
Okay.
Maybe that's why.
Mm,
Maybe that's why he brought it.
maybe. I can't remember. But yeah, it was like, oh, that's interesting. And then so we have Brady meeting Noah, and we get the big she introduces him as her boyfriend.
That was cute. They're
Yeah.
like, oh, my boyfriend.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. I thought it was cute.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
like them together, but I mean, now I'm like, oh God, is she gonna end up with Max? A
Yeah.
Landry and a Goodwin?
But Max just seems like no good.
But maybe he's just got a tough boy exterior with a
No.
golden heart. I mean, I don't
Could
know. We
be.
haven't really, they
Could
haven't talked
be.
about it much yet.
He just seems a little hostile, his energy.
Yeah, yeah.
So we'll see what ends up happening with that. And so then Kat goes back and kisses Thomas. So that was big. And then
Wait, I think that was just a flashback.
oh, was it a flashback?
Yeah, she hasn't seen Thomas yet. That was like, I think just her reliving all of these memories of Thomas and being like, "Oh man, am I with the right man or should I be leaving Thomas?"
Yeah,
That's what I'm telling you.
feeling it.
This whole episode, she was just like, "I'm not over Thomas. Like, I don't know about Elliot anymore. His wife is here, ex-wife's here. She's nice. Do we even have a love story that's worth writing songs about?
Yeah,
He's gonna
yeah.
write me a song, Thomas would, and he did. Okay,
That's
if he
right.
could, if he could, he would,
Yeah, it's hard when you're taking notes about the show to like you're obviously still trying to watch it, but like
Yeah.
capturing everything in your notes is a little hard. But so Jacob decides to take Lewis's offer. So this is
Mhm.
going to be interesting to see what happens with that.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And Brady is concerned with Kat living with Elliot, which of course she would be.
I mean,
Because he's
left your
concerned about
daughter
Alice.
in a home without her mom, but okay. I mean, again, it's a
But
store,
then
but
here was
still.
the big thing is that she says this move-in is only temporary, and Elliot hears it. Overhears.
I don't know if she wants to be with Elliot, man.
So then Elliot like rage plays the piano. He's like,
I didn't even know he could play the piano. Did we know
didn't
this?
know either.
He just came out of nowhere. I'm like, I thought he was gonna like be reading something behind them and realizing like the song was about something. I don't know. And then he was just like,
Yeah.
I know how to play this already. I'm like, oh, okay.
Gone by the Light of the Moon is the name of the song, and
Belle's
it's written in
birthday, yeah.
1816. And this is interesting because they talk about it being a literal dark time, and this is true. This is historically true. 1816 is known as the year without a summer because of a severe climate abnormalities that caused average global temperatures to decrease. Summer temperatures in Europe were the coldest of any on record between 1766 and 2000, resulting in crop failures, major food shortages across the northern hemisphere. And then let's see here. It says
Yeah.
The year without a summer was an agricultural disaster, the last great subsistence crisis in the Western world. The climatic aberrations of 1816 had their greatest effect on New England, Atlantic Canada, and Western Europe.
Canada.
The
That's where they
main
are.
cause of the year without a summer is generally held to be a volcanic winter created by the April 1815 eruption of Mount Tambora on Sumbawa. The eruption had a volcanic explosivity index ranking of 7 and injected at least 37 kilometers of dense rock equivalent material into the atmosphere. It remains the most recent confirmed VI7 eruption to date.
Wow. And then
Well,
in the
that's kind
show,
of
yeah,
interesting.
that's crazy. And then in the show, they're saying like, you know, lots of people died. They blamed it on witches. Susanna didn't include this chapter of what happened in Fort Haven in her book. But art tells the story. Um, so I'm
Yeah.
curious, like, and well, and now like that now that they've heard this song, like Kat and Jacob are like, oh my God, we need to go back to the 1800s and like figure out what happened. But like, I guess I'm not sure of like why they're so urgent to do that when like clearly everyone was fine if they like the families all survived and continued and like they're all alive now in this generation. So
Yeah,
like,
but I think you'd be really worried if like you had been tortured and abused by somebody that your like loved ones, especially when we get to the end of this. Like that would with Susanna end up marrying Cyrus. That was wild.
yeah. Wait, so yeah, and so
You
then,
know, so like you'd be concerned about your loved ones.
but also, what does that mean for like Elliot if like technically the Augustines and Goodwins like connected their lineage?
Uh-huh.
I'm like confused about that. Because
Yeah.
wouldn't Elliot be a Goodwin?
Ooh. Well, and that would make sense why Vic is so bitter about it all.
Well, I thought he was more bitter because he blames Colton for his brother's death, and that's why he hates the
Well,
Landrys. But
yeah,
also,
that's
well,
a
I guess
big
he hates the
part of
Goodwins
it, but
too.
also he's bitter about his just ancestors too.
So
That
maybe
the
subtextually, like,
Landrys get all the credit for everything, and
and the Goodwins
the
too, because they're
and the
all rich.
Goodwins and the Augustines get the bad rap. If Cyrus is his grandfather, that would make an additional thing to be bitter about.
But why? How would they separate again then to become Augustines again? Or I guess that's his aunt, so she had brothers. Oh, she had brothers, right? It said, oh yeah, because they released that
Susanna?
book. Yeah, they released that book chapter. Did you see that? Where like
No.
I think it was like the creator of the show, the showrunner, like showed the back of Susanna's book and it says something about like she had three brothers. So maybe Susanna marries Cyrus, becomes a Goodwin, continues the Goodwin line, and then Elliot is part of, is a relative of like the brothers. Maybe like the brother had a family, blah, 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 and then Elliot was born. But so then like they're technically related, but like really far back.
Wild.
Crazy!
Well, yeah,
I don't even
it's
know.
wild.
I'm confused.
Okay. So then Alice and Dell have this fight. And because she's saying like, "Oh, you should have been nicer to Evie." And then Dell says, "Stay out of my memories."
Yeah.
What do you think about that? Are you on a side?
Oh my gosh, it's so hard because it's like Dell is just in modern day, like living her life, and everyone else is time traveling, picking apart the past. And so, like, I kind of see both sides of like, man, Dell's probably like, leave me alone.
But is there something that Dell's hiding, do you think?
I think Dell's definitely hiding something. She starts teasing some stuff at the end of this episode that I was like, what happened? Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
especially
So
about why she hates her birthday. So,
so yeah, well, she says that I left Port Haven after her birthday in 1974. Then she says I made a selfish choice, and she's worried that Alice will think less of her because of it.
we gotta see what it is because I feel like they sometimes tease these things that are not that big of a deal. Like
Yeah, like the
fight,
Longmire or whatever that thing was.
yeah, whatever the fight was that like Cat and Dell had, that it was like this really didn't need to go on this long. Like where they were,
Yeah.
Alice is gonna hate me. It's like what? Because you said like something that wasn't even that bad about wishing that Jacob was around. Yeah, we all wish Jacob was around. Nobody said I wish you were gone and taken instead. Like
Hmm.
so, we'll see
Yeah.
this big secret.
That's true. They did lead it all up to that big what's it is it Longmire or Long anyway, that place and
Oh yeah, yeah.
that this was like this big fight and it really
It wasn't
wasn't
that
that
big.
big. It was
Yeah,
like
we'll
I'm gonna
see.
go to Europe.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really
Unless it
was.
somehow ties back to that baby in the beginning of episode one. I don't know.
Oh yeah.
I mean, then maybe. Okay, but if it's,
Who's the baby?
yeah, who's
And
that
who
baby?
is it that pushes Alice into the pond too? You
I don't
know?
know. I think we'll find it
Who
all out.
is it?
What if it's
That's
Alice?
like
With all those fun.
Alice from another time period pushing Alice into the pond.
I don't know. I don't
That
know.
would be wild.
It could be
Oh my
anything.
gosh. Alice, and then Brady talks to Jacob,
Yes. The note
and
Alice was interesting because of what Noah says that Max said about her. That
oh,
she's
what? Yeah, what did he say?
He said, Max said, she's wife material. You better lock her down.
Ah, oh my
Oh, that's what I was like. Wife material, Max. What are you saying? Are,
god.
are you gonna marry Alice in the future and have Casey, and then
Ugh.
Casey's the family name for Cassandra, and then they're gonna time travel back and make sure their parents get together? I don't know. Making
Yeah.
it now. Who
Well,
knows?
so then Brady apologizes to Jacob for distracting Kat at the carnival. And then Jacob says,
Yeah.
I never blamed you. So that was
I
kind of a nice moment.
I like that Jacob has been having these like resolutions with like Brady and Danny and just being like, it wasn't your fault, man. Like, we're all cool. Like,
Yeah.
it was what it was.
Well, and a nice moment for Brady as well,
Hmm.
because it'd be easy to just make his character like a total villain, but they give him some humanity,
Hmm.
which I appreciate.
Yeah, me too.
And then so Dell leaves Port Haven after her birthday. I made a selfish choice, and then we
That
find
left
out.
people with no choice at all. That was a specific thing she said. So what does that mean? She's like, I
Yeah,
made a selfish choice that left people with no choice at all.
yeah, that's weird.
So what if
Uh,
a lot of people?
and she says, I'm worried that she'll think less of me because of it. So what? And so then Elliot proposes to Emma because he saw Kat and Brady and says it was a sign I had to move on.
Yeah. It just goes to show that, like, you see something, you make an assumption, and that doesn't mean that's what it really was. So this was like a flashback to like why Elliot and Emma even got married, and then you're seeing that like, oh, well, he thought Brady and Kat were so happy together, when really that was like the end of their relationship.
Well, and he
And
also says, people have told me how and when to live my life, and it's time for me to start living it. That's what he tells to Emma.
yeah.
And and then Kat says, what you
Well, wait,
saw,
that's another layer too, because it's like he's known his entire future up until that point, pretty much.
yeah. And so she says, what you saw was the furthest thing from happy.
Mm,
Because they were not or they were not doing well.
mhm.
And so Jacob and Kat talk. They're like, we need to go back. And
Yes.
so Alice asked Max about Casey. Casey is a family name, Cassandra. That was wild. Like, what?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
The
Okay.
vote.
And it says, you're good at research. Alice is good at research. And then, so Jacob and Kat jump together and they end up in 1816. And
There was some
Cyrus,
interesting audio when they jumped. Did you hear that? It was
oh
like
no.
voices, like I don't know what it was. I was trying to like listen closer, but There was some,
Huh.
it was like they jumped together and then you could hear like some kind of audio talk
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah. Well, find out Cyrus is marrying Susanna. And then we see Thomas is also watching. So what
Yeah.
does that mean?
Thomas is coming back. All the Thomas and cat lovers, get ready.
Yes,
He's coming back.
he's coming back. And like, because I always felt like it was very interesting that the first thing we see of Thomas, not only was it incredibly handsome, but him coming out of the pond. So is he he was he seemed to not be time traveling. He seems to be able to go in the pond and not. So that, I mean, but that like threw me off because I always thought that okay, he's not a time traveler.
Hmm. I mean, he
But
might not be. He was still just in the regular 1800s.
yeah.
I mean, but again, like we've seen Elliot travel to the past, so could Cat somehow get him to travel to the future if they break rules or something? I don't know.
Well, because we know Colton's a rule breaker.
Mm-hmm.
So what is going on?
Defying death. My gosh. Yeah, there's so
It would
many
be
places.
like it would be very fun if they somehow managed to finagle it to have Elliot come to conflict with Thomas, for them to meet somehow, some way,
I mean,
either for Elliot to go back or for Thomas to go forward, or who knows what.
yeah,
That would be fun.
yeah. And there is something I wanted to bring up, that I don't really know what it means, but I feel like was it the Grandma Fern that brought it up? She said 55 first arrived, 55 never tried, 65 thought they died, 65 still alive. I don't know,
Oh,
it seemed like some kind of like secret message. Like, does that mean something? Is it hinting at different years
because
or
65, that's when there was the position to fill in the pond.
yeah, so maybe there was like thought they
65.
died, still alive. I don't know.
65 still alive. Huh.
Hmm.
What did they say about 55?
First arrived.
First arrived.
Yeah, I don't know like what that means, but I've been seeing people like theorizing about it and like could that be like a big hint of something or I don't know. Or
Yeah.
I don't know. But
Wow.
this I feel like there's like so much more stuff that they're gonna explore and dive into with all of these characters and maybe even other people in other times that we haven't even met. Who
Yeah.
knows?
Yeah. Well, let us know what you think of these two episodes. What are your theories? What do you have to add? We, like I said, we got so many good comments. The last recap, it was awesome. So we want that to continue. We really enjoy hearing like, and if you think that like one of our takes was totally wrong, like we want to hear that because that's just all part of the fun of the show. So yeah, put it in the comments, and Kristen, where can people find you?
Yeah, you can find me pretty much everywhere at Kaymaldo, Kaymaldo, or on my site at popcultureplanet.net. And for um, the most recent episodes, I have my full interview out now from the Way Home cast because I had a little bit of some spoilers in there. So if you want to check that out, I feel like there's a lot of fun stuff that they
Yeah.
talk about for this
Yeah,
season.
you all definitely want to check it out because you did more of like a deep dive with them than I did. I was more sort of over
Oh yeah.
you know,
I
broader
asked a lot.
overview.
I asked a lot of my burning questions about like, why this, why that,
Yeah,
things like why do you think Colton didn't tell them about the pond? Why do you think what do you think the deal is with other time travelers, maybe showing
yeah,
up? So we'll see, check it
yeah.
out.
Also, definitely listen to that and check out our playlist with all of our Way Home content on there. And we have and our merch store, we have Way Home merch. So you can check that out. 30% off. Hallmark is 30 right now. All of our merch. Take a look at that. And yeah, you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. Check that out. Also, make sure you're following the podcast, all of our social media. And if you are listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. We really, really appreciate it. And if you are If you're watching it on YouTube, please give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. We appreciate that so much. And we also have our patron group, which is the biggest way you can support everything we're doing. We have an awesome patron event coming up in February. We have writer and director Emily Ting, who did the directed Girl Haunts Boy, which was really fun for Netflix. And so she's doing a Q&A for our patrons. So that's the kind of things that you get being a patron. I really try to make it worth your investment, and we sure appreciate it. So check that out. And thanks so much, everybody. We'll talk to you later. Bye.